Welcome, Maya, to Leadership Happens. This is our podcast that we do here in San Diego. This is great to have an in-person, live, in-studio session today. It's wonderful that you had the ability to come over and kind of join the podcast and the show live and in person, face-to-face. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. I am honored to be here, and I can't wait to get started.
Me too. And for those of you that have not seen Maya out and about in the cookie world and the confectionery world and all the amazing things that she does, so Maya Madsen is the founder of Maya's Cookies here in San Diego, with facility in San Diego and also in San Marcos, which is North County, San Diego, for our non-local listeners out there. And Maya and I actually met through the board of Junior Achievement. And I was on the board for a while, and then I've been a volunteer and part of the company program for a number of years. And Maya has volunteered her time as a judge and as a mentor for a lot of the teams out there. And that's where we first connected.
Yep, that's where we connected.
There's a lot of great organizations around San Diego. It's just amazing to have those very, very similar, missions and vision and values in mind that we can put to good use.
Yes, I agree. And I like to say your network is your net worth. So I'm so happy that we were able to connect.
Very much so. So thank you for joining us. We have a lot to get to today. We're going to talk about our kind of working title for this conversation is, how to make sure you can bake your passion into your leadership strategy. So nice kind of play on words with baking, obviously.
I love it.
Gotta use the puns whenever we possibly can, right? But I want to start with a segment that I always call the do-overs and the do-agains. One of the things about this podcast I think really kind of helps us kind of stand out is that we want to focus as much on things that we could do differently. And, from a standpoint of how we mentor and support other people and leaders that are up and coming by saying, hey, here's where I made mistakes, right? The more vulnerable that we are as leaders, then the more we're going to invite that vulnerability and that honesty among the folks that we're also working with. So we'll start with that. So what are your do-overs that you would kind of do again if you could later on?
So many to choose from. I narrowed it down to a couple. So I wanted to touch on a couple of those if you don't mind.
Sure.
One is not shrinking myself down to make others feel more comfortable. And I realized that I did that a lot in my professional career as an entrepreneur, as a CEO. And I finally woke up one day and said, if people aren't comfortable sitting and having a discussion or a conversation with me and they feel intimidated, that's not my problem, because I'm not going to shrink myself down anymore to make anyone else feel comfortable. So owning my strengths, I guess. So that was a personal thing for me. The other thing would be for me as CEO, as an entrepreneur, when I first started my business, as most businesses do, we hire our friends and family. And that was great in the beginning for me. But as my business scaled up, I recognized that some of the people that I brought along were not able to keep up with the scaling of the business. And maybe I let that drag on a little too long. And I think that is a do-over I would like to have for myself, for my business, and for those people that I had along with me on the journey. Just all around, I would have addressed it sooner.
Do you think you would have, to that point, do you think you would have hired them in a different role or been more clear about what you expected of them? Or is it maybe a lack of accountability because they were friends and family? What do you think was the misalignment there?
I think the misalignment for me was not having clear expectations, because I didn't know what to expect. Our business was growing steadily when I had 2 or 3 employees, and that was fine. But we literally had a 6x growth overnight. So I had to scramble and find people that could fill roles that I needed filled, and I wasn't sure how to define their roles. Everyone was doing a little bit of everything. So I think part of it was not having clear expectations. The other part was obviously when you know someone, there's a little bit of, I don't know what the term is, accountability or leniency or letting things happen that maybe shouldn't happen. So for the sake of my loved ones and my friends, I definitely would like to do that over again. It would have salvaged some relationships.
Sure. And I think that, going from, 2 or 3 employees to, like you said, to a 6-fold increase in business overnight, and that was during COVID
during COVID.
Our previous conversations, yeah. You almost have no choice, though. You need someone to come in that you can trust to not maybe steal the business away from you, right? It's one thing. And someone who has enough skills where they can at least, kind of fake it till they make it kind of a situation. But to your point, if you had the luxury at that time of being more kind of thoughtful about it, maybe you would have done differently. But at the same time, did you have much of a choice? Maybe not.
Yeah, probably not. But also, I think that it seemed fun and games at the time because we were the darlings of the COVID. We're a Black business shipping online during COVID. Who doesn't want to order cookies? We can't shop at the grocery stores, right? So online sales were thriving. We continued to grow. And I think the people that I brought on didn't particularly, maybe they weren't interested in growing the same level that I was interested in growing. Like they were happy at a certain,
wasn't there.
Right. They were happy at a certain level, but beyond that level, they weren't in it to win it. And it was a mutual thing. It happened. And yeah, that's my do-over, I guess.
And then what about the do again? So the things that you have done maybe consistently or even maybe more recently as a leader, we think, you know what, this is my superpower. To your point before, where you're not going to shrink down and just try to do things to make others comfortable. What are the things that you do again and again that contribute to your success as a leader?
I think listening to my gut, being firm with that, and empowering my team, but also listening to my gut, letting them know that my gut and my instinct are what got me to where I am today, and I want to continue to trust that. And if it's a mistake, when I do listen to my gut, I want to take full responsibility for that. If it's a win, I want to take responsibility but share it as well and continue to learn from my mistakes. I know that sounds like a canned answer, but that's something that's top of my mind every day is I have a unique instinct and a gut for what I'm doing, and it's gotten me pretty far. Sometimes it's wrong, but I really do feel that listening to my gut is just of high value to what I'm trying to do.
Well, and honestly, kudos to you for having the self-awareness, right? I think there are some people out there that listen to their gut blindly without learning from the mistakes, the do-overs that you talked about, right? And there are others that don't listen. They're so afraid to make a decision that they want so much data, they want so much analysis, and the whole paralysis by analysis is very true. It comes up again and again and again. So kudos to you for having that gut balance, for lack of a better term.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure, that's great. And I'm reminding our listeners also that we're here with Maya Madsen again. She's the founder and CEO of Maya's Cookies here in San Diego. Tell us a little bit about Maya's Cookies. And, it's a unique business. I mean, you're the number one, Black-owned vegan gourmet cookie place in the country, right? Which is fantastic. I have tasted many of your cookies at different events at Junior Achievement. But tell us about, the mission and vision behind the business, because I know being a Black entrepreneur, a Black female entrepreneur, is a big part of who you are, how you run your business, and really how you empower your team.
Yes. So I started Maya's Cookies in 2015. It was a side hustle, a hobby. I spent 30 years as a personal trainer. I also happened to be vegan. And back in those days, you couldn't find vegan products on the market like you do today. So everything had to be homemade, basically. And I was known for my chocolate chip cookie recipe. I would give it out to my clients to show them that you can still enjoy plant-based and have desserts. Everyone will be blown away. Fast forward to, that was back in 2010. It's kind of when that started. Fast forward to 2015, and 2 of my 3 sons were in college at the same time. So my side hustle turned into a side business in order to bring in just a little bit extra cash to help make ends meet, because 2 kids in college is daunting. And that's how Maya's Cookies started. I was selling them out of my home kitchen. I started after that in farmers markets. I leased space in a sauerkraut and kimchi factory in Poway to get my commercial kitchen certification, and we just grew from there. And I started with simple recipes, classic chocolate chip, and then a chocolate cookie. And as I got better at learning the chemistry of plant-based and how to make them taste good, and also listening to my customers at the farmers markets and getting a feel for what they like and what was selling, I started to expand my repertoire and just increase what we were doing, whether it be new flavors. I started getting more creative as I got better. I had a lot of duds. I made a lot of mistakes. I learned a lot, and it's all chemistry and science. So I like to say I'm a woman in STEM, even though I'm baking cookies.
No, to that point, did you have a food chemist that you knew or that was on staff? How did you, speaking of the chemistry piece that you talked about?
I thought I needed one, but I didn't have any money to start this business. So everything I learned was by experimenting myself. And it didn't click to me that this was chemistry until a few years into it when I looked back and I said, you know what? This facility is a clean room. When it's a certain temperature, the cookies turn out this way. If it's a certain temperature, if it's too warm, they turn out this way. I'm turning a traditional recipe using animal cells and trying to replicate them with plant-based cells and get the same outcome, if not better. And I thought, you know what? I think this is chemistry and I understand it somehow, some way, even though that was never a strength of mine. I just had a good understanding of it. And that's when I gave myself the title of Woman in STEM.
I love that.
I always really looked up to scientists, women especially, and I love to honor them and appreciate what they're doing. So I kind of put myself in that category out of my fangirl for women in STEM. So I'm not really a woman in STEM, but
I like it.
I'm adjacent.
It's in sweet STEM, right? Add another S to the front of STEM, right? Sweet STEM. I like that. Well, so I'm curious, back to one of the comments you made a few minutes ago. So COVID really accelerated things, right? 6 times you said kind of overnight. Did you accelerate your plan that you already had in place? Maybe it was a 3-year plan that got condensed down to 48 hours, or did you grow in ways that you really never even thought were possible until you were forced into it with COVID?
A little of both. When I started the company, I said to myself, I want to be a national presence. I want to be the new Mrs. Fields, and I spoke those into existence. I believed in that. Not everyone else believed in that. They would just say, okay, Maya. But I truly, in my heart, wanted to manifest that and take steps towards doing that. And that's how I ran my business from the minute I started at farmers markets on up. So I had visions. I was continuing to educate myself on all areas of the business and all areas of vegan baking and veganism and all the things, and network, join organizations to help me grow. So I was in it to win it. My plan was to get to where I wanted to be within 5 years and then scale up from there. So I was slowly taking steps in that direction, meaning I hired my first employee after 2 years. And we would grow from there. Then I had another employee who helped open our website with me and package and ship the product. So I had a slow, steady growth is what I was trying to articulate. And in 2020, all the farmers markets were shut down. So our online sales, we were shipping about 20 orders a day, and that was keeping the lights on and I wasn't paying myself, and had my staff keeping them somewhat employed. And then all of a sudden, on June 4th, I woke up to 10,000 orders in our website. So if you take 10,000 orders, multiply that by 12 cookies per order, multiply that by, just 2 people, and that's what happened. So I was forced to scale up overnight to complete that. And when that happened, it allowed me to hire more. It allowed me to purchase equipment. I couldn't get a loan. I couldn't get access to capital. I didn't have a network, none of those things. So that growth allowed me to scale up, purchase some equipment, improve our branding, hire some outside consultants to really help me ride this wave and not be a one-hit wonder, but really take advantage of the opportunity. And basically what happened is, being a Black-owned business, we were on several lists floating around the internet of Black-owned businesses to support because the social unrest that was going on after the George Floyd social injustice, and it was on top of everyone's mind wanting to support Black-owned businesses. And I do recognize that a lot of that was reactionary at the time. I also recognize that it was hard because I knew people were responding to the movement, and I knew that there was very little room for error, meaning customer service, product, shipping. At that time, I don't know if you remember, but the Postal Service was going through some stuff.
Yes, to say the least. Yes, exactly.
And that impacted us.
Yeah.
So, there were a lot of challenges during that time, and also supply chains were disrupted. So sourcing the ingredients I needed. Vegan ingredients are not easy to source. You can't just go to your nearest grocery store or your national distributor and get them. We have to source them from very specific distributors and things. So the whole supply chain was disrupted. Everything that could go wrong was happening at that time. And it felt like I would wake up and say, and it was like every day something happened. It was like I was getting slapped to the right, slapped on the left,
What's
slapped
next?
on the right.
What's the fire going to be to put out? Yeah, exactly.
And just being able to fulfill those orders, showing them Black excellence. I felt that I was also carrying other Black businesses on my shoulders, because if I mess up, that could be a reflection on what people perceive other Black businesses to operate or function like.
Yeah, your strengths and your weaknesses are amplified.
Exactly.
Because you are now this kind of de facto spokesperson, right, for Black businesses, and even so you have Black businesses, but are also female-owned Black businesses. It's that double whammy almost.
Right. So I own all of the successes and mistakes, and there were some mistakes at the time because, having to ship out that many orders on our website, it said that your order is baked and shipped within 3 days. So I said, hurry, take that down.
Exactly, right. We can't deliver 10,000 orders.
Right. And by that time, people, 2 days later, people are already emailing saying, where's my order? I ordered, 2 days ago, and it says it'll be here in 3 days. So I finally made the decision to go on social media and address all of our new followers. We went from 3,000 followers to 30,000 followers and introduced myself. And I was vulnerable at that time. I'm usually very stoic, and I don't present myself on social media. I let the cookies do the talking. So I went on camera for the first time and just said, thank you for all of your support. We are working around the clock to make sure that your orders get fulfilled. I'm asking for a little grace because it's going to take us some time to get these orders, but I promise you they're coming, and it's going to be excellent, high quality like we say.
Good for you for doing that, though. There's so many examples during COVID of so many CEOs from large visible companies that took the opposite approach and went dark.
Oh.
You didn't hear from them, right? And there was no communication with their employees or their customers. Nobody knew how they were going to survive. I had a lot of clients and a lot of candidates that changed jobs in 2021 and the Great Resignation did so as a result of poor treatment, right, by customers and by their bosses in 2020. So kudos to you for taking that on and getting out in front of that as well. I'm really curious though. So you touched on a lot of different things, but leadership, you don't learn leadership overnight. You had to find these facilities and find new people and fulfill all these orders. That was, sixfold what you had been doing the week prior. But you didn't have any time to become a better leader all of a sudden overnight. How did you learn to do those things? What did you start reading a lot more? Did you join Vistage? What did you do to ramp up your leadership skills in that really aggressive time frame?
Well, I have a saying, it's been my motto for life since I was 3 years old, believe it or not, is put my big girl pants on and figure it out. And that's what I had to do. I had no other choice. And it was difficult. My 2 employees that I did have, they were freaking out and crumbling and how are we going to do this and panicking. And I said, here's what we're going to do. I had no choice, right? So basically, I want to touch on that because I had them crumbling and crying and worried. And I said, here's what we're going to do. I want Shelly, your daughter just graduated high school. She's very smart. I want you to contact her, have her find everybody that she knows that was a valedictorian, a salutatorian, team captain of any sports team, involved in drama club. I want leaders and high performers. And I knew at that time that college kids were home. A lot of athletes were home because their seasons were canceled. A lot of kids lost their internships, and I knew they were hungry for something to do. So I said, I want you to go through your network and you find everybody in that age group who is a high achiever because I don't have time to hands-on teach. I need them to be able to critically think and problem solve and work along with me and be able to pivot and make changes as needed. And I can't babysit or I can't hold anybody's hand as much as maybe they would like. So that was step one.
Wow.
So I gave that direction to Shelly. Her daughter came through with 30 people that were from, I had Duke, Stanford, Berkeley, UCLA, you name it. I had high performers from those schools that came in and performed and helped me out that happened to live in San Diego, who had lost their internships or were on sports teams. I had kids that were in medical school. I mean, you talk about high performers and high achievers and people that are used to working hard.
Well-disciplined, focused. Yeah.
Yes.
How did you decide which roles to put each of those 30, amazing drivers into?
Well, that's funny you should say that, because the girl I said, okay, you girls have probably more attention to detail than maybe the boys over here. So we're going to put the boys on fulfillment boxing, and the girls, we're going to put you on picking and, packaging and making the box look pretty full of cookies. And maybe I was being biased, but I had to make that decision.
Yeah, you had no choice.
Yeah. And I said,
Gotta get done.
As a wife and mother of 3 young men, I just assumed that we have maybe sometimes a little bit more attention to detail when it comes to making a package look pretty. So I put the girls on that. I put some of the boys on the boxing. And basically, every hour we would have to roll about 100 boxes of orders to the post office. So let me back up a little bit, and I'll touch on what you just asked me a little bit more. So I'm in a 1,300 square foot kitchen with a little garage warehouse, and I needed space to house hundreds of thousands of shipping supplies, flours, sugars, all pallets and pallets. And I had semi-trucks on their way within 2 days because I had to go online and order all that stuff immediately. So I contacted my landlord, and I asked him if there were any spaces in my facility that were vacant that we could temporarily use. And the only one was about a quarter mile away. Luckily, the post office is right there as well. So basically, the boys were the ones that would have to take the big, because it was hot.
Sure, right.
So, and it was up a hill. And girls can do this too, but I wanted the girls packing. So I used the athletes that were, female and male, but mostly it was male athletes. And they were the ones that took those heavy things full of boxes, big, huge bins full of boxes, and ran them up to the post office over and over again, hour after hour, all day. And it was hot, and you would see them like running down the street with, I don't know what those big bins are called, but they're the ones that are at the post office.
Yeah, sure. I've seen them. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
full of heavy boxes of cookies. And
so were you constantly? So this was in March. Was it actually when COVID hit? Or you said
this was in June, and it was a hot June. It was baking hot. And as far as the bakers go, our cookies are very nuanced. They're high quality, premium ingredients, and they're not a cookie that you can just teach someone to make overnight. So for that reason, I took on the role as I was doing as the head baker, and I really didn't have a lot of time to teach a lot. There's just, when you're teaching someone how to do things, it takes a lot of time, and we didn't have time. That was a privilege, which we did not have. So I led the baking team, which meant that I was there from 4 a.m. till 9 p.m. every day.
Wow.
And I had to do that because in order to get those orders fulfilled in a reasonable amount of time, there were certain numbers we had to meet per hour of baking. And I did the math. I'm a data cruncher, and I crunched the numbers and had, a solid number. Here's what we have to do every hour. So I could not stop to take breaks, basically. And I had to have my family come and bring me food. I came home one night and I said, look, you guys, I'm not eating. Somebody can bring me some food because I can't stop. I can't.
No time for breaks.
There's no time for breaks because if I take 15, 20 minutes out of my day, it slows down production and it's going to slow down, this process. And as it was, I didn't get any days off until September. It took that long to fulfill those orders.
Wow.
So it really pushed me.
And during that time, did you have, maybe you had somebody already before that, did you have an executive coach or a network of 2 or 3 peers that you would rely on that were helping you through all this, that were saying, hey, Maya, don't forget about yourself, your own well-being, your mental health, your, all those things that are so important as a leader? Did you have somebody that was there for you, or you were just going to go?
My husband and my 3 sons. So before that, I hadn't had any executive coaching. I had mentors, and I still do have mentors. So I did reach out to my mentor, and she kind of gave me some guidance on how those things that you touched on. And my mentor is someone that she tells me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear, whether it's good or bad. Sometimes I listen to her, sometimes I don't, but I own whatever I do. So no, I didn't have any executive coaching. I wasn't part of any groups. I wasn't on any boards. I wasn't on anything. I had spent 30 years as a personal trainer, and then I was a farmer's market vendor, and then I was an e-commerce CEO. And to be honest, I didn't even call myself a CEO. I didn't put that on my signature line because I had imposter syndrome, and I didn't believe that that's what I was.
Back to kind of shrinking down, like you mentioned
Shrinking
earlier
down.
on, not
Yes.
not allowing yourself to take credit for the success you had.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Shrinking down. And I didn't even know what Vistage was. I didn't know any of that stuff, right? So I've since increased my network. I didn't even have a LinkedIn account at that time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I had nothing.
Yeah.
I just had my guts, my drive, and my perseverance and my grit and my ability to make delicious vegan cookies.
Well, and I mean, you obviously you got an MBA in 6 months, right? I mean, on the street, you're in the bakery, like you said, from 4 a.m. till 9 p.m, day after day after day, bringing on this team of 30 recent college grads or soon-to-be college grads that were athletes. I mean, you had to do so much so quickly without much guidance, and there was no blueprint or framework to follow. And
Right.
every CEO out there, big company, small company, was going through a lot of the same. Not as hands-on and as scrappy as you had to be, but there's a lot of that happening out there for sure. So let's go back to kind of the lessons learned, I guess, for to use a bit of a cliche. What did you learn through that? So as things maybe started to normalize a little bit, you said September, October timeframe, did you take some time then to kind of reflect on, holy crap, what did I just go through? And what did I learn from it? And how do I want to apply that as the leader of the next phase of my company?
So not exactly, because even though I got through those orders by September, the business continued to grow. People were finding out about us, and I was getting opportunities to speak. People wanted interviews. They wanted to hear what we were doing. So there were a lot of things that were still coming my way, but we were still growing at a fast pace. So I hired a consultant to help me with branding and marketing. And this consultant came from a high-level corporation, so she had the business acumen that I did not have at the time. And I leaned heavily on her guidance, and she taught me a lot of things. She taught me a lot of business acumen. She would lead some of the conversations, and I was her student. I was listening to how she conducted herself and the questions she asked, and I learned a lot from that. So she is still one of our consultants, just in a smaller role. But she's someone that is a mentor for me and I continue to speak with. But no, I was not able to look back and reflect. I was full-blown in growth mode. And it was like I explained it to someone, and I said, you know what? It's like Marmaduke the dog, and Marmaduke is pulling you along, and you're trying to keep up with Marmaduke. And Marmaduke is the cookie business, the vegan cookies. Cookies make people happy.
He's going to go where he's going to go.
That's right.
You're along for the ride. Yeah.
You know, cookies were exploding at the time as well. So not only was I in that space, but the business was continuing to scale up and grow. And I was trying to take all the opportunities that were coming my way. So it took I'm still learning. And I still have a ways to go. But I definitely have accepted that I am the CEO of Maya's Cookies, and if there are mistakes that I make, I own them, and I'm going to continue to make mistakes. I try to learn from them, and I also try to get myself into places where I'm around others that I can learn from, such as yourself. So that's one thing of value that I look back on is that, like I said earlier, your network is your net worth, and I have had opportunities to be in spaces with high-level people, and I try to learn from them and see what they've done good, what they've done bad,
Right.
and try to make educated decisions based off that. So I'm still learning.
We all are. Trust me. There is anybody who says, "Oh, I figured this whole thing out. I know how to run a business. I know how to run a team. I know how to be a leader." they're lying, right? Either they have no self-awareness and they're just narcissists, or they're lying to themselves, or both. But
Yes.
that's after having a business for 16 years now and having gone through a lot of ups and downs as well. I really thought at year 3 or maybe year 5 that I would have figured it out. I would have the formula, and I would know if as long as I do A, B, and C, then D is going to happen. And the one thing I've learned is that it's never been true. You do something that works well for a year, you think, great, this is the way it's going to be now. And then the year after that, for whatever reason, what you did that worked before is no longer working. And so you've got to be adaptable, and you've got to ebb and flow, and just be a good listener. And I think be aware what's happening around you. Some things are going to drag you along like Marmaduke that you can't control. But other times you're Marmaduke, and you're bringing the market or the team, or in this case, kind of being a Black female owner, that initiative, right, or that focus, or that spotlight, you're taking in a direction that you want to take it because you feel like these things are either underutilized, or people are under-acknowledged, right? Whether it's getting loans out there, or you're talking to other Black entrepreneurs, whatever it is. But you can be the Marmaduke. You can be the one to lead that initiative and that campaign as well.
Yes, I love that. And to speak on...
That should be your book.
Yeah.
I am the Marmaduke.
Right. To speak on that, I did recognize that I was being given platforms to speak or to have my product in places. And so I decided that I would also help my fellow Black entrepreneurs and business owners. So I did start a Black Business Roundtable back in 2020, just so that we are in the same space and we can talk through problems and maybe help each other out with supply chain or whatever that may be, or just a sounding board, because we do have unique circumstances or situations or opportunities and things that are unique to us that we can freely speak on and feel comfortable. And also, I've always been mission driven. And I say that because even when I was a farmer's market vendor only, if an organization came to me and asked for a donation, I always say yes, because I believe in supporting nonprofits, underserved communities, marginalized groups. And that's always been important to me. But once my business scaled up and I had higher volume platforms to speak on, that was really amplified. And what I mean by that is we definitely try to source ingredients from other BIPOC brands. In our grab-and-go refrigerator case, all the drinks are BIPOC brands. And so some of our ingredients we source from Black-owned companies. I just found a Black-owned salt company with unique salts. So we're going to experiment and see if... So I also want to be able to lift, if I'm able to, them up, or they lift me up with their branding. So it's kind of a mutual thing. So yes, mission-driven is important to me. We've been able to donate financially as well as with, support, meaning offering our facilities to other brands, to nonprofits. I'm always looking to serve on different organizations where they need help, whether it's the Boys and Girls Club, just different things that are meaningful to me and Maya's Cookies as a brand in general.
Well, so now we're recording this now in what is this, September of 2023, right? So we're 3.5 years past when COVID first hit. We've all learned an awful lot as leaders and as employees, as spouses, as parents. There's a lot of learning that's gone on. I'm curious as to what you've learned as a leader and how you lead today. So I would imagine, maybe I'm wrong, but that you're able to spend a little bit more time now on strategy, and you don't have to be in the bakery from 4 a.m. to 9 p.m. How do you balance your time as a leader, and how do you lead your team now with that luxury of having a little bit more time to think through things versus having to react, in the moment 3 years ago?
That's a great question. So my leadership style before was put my big girl pants on, figure it out, and I assumed everyone else under me was able to do that as well. So I didn't micromanage, but I have since recognized that everyone is different. Everyone learns differently and takes their role and looks up to their leadership differently and has different needs as well. So I've adjusted that. I've tried to educate myself. I'm constantly reading books, listening to books. I just finished Phil Knight's book about Nike and learning how to be a better leader. So with that being said, I do recognize that structure seems to be very important, and I'm learning to offer more structure and not just have everyone tell them what I would like and have them figure it out, right? So everyone's different. So I have learned to evaluate each person's needs and also give them the opportunity to be able to showcase and highlight their talent as well. So I guess my leadership style is still evolving, but definitely more structured and understanding the needs of the team around me and empowering them as well. So whether that be helping them with their education on their journey to develop into their roles, or, bringing them along with me when I get invited to listen to a talk, just whatever that may be. So it's an ongoing learning process. I'm definitely more structured. SOPs, I didn't even know what those were 3 years ago, but now SOP is top of mind always. And just having a great team around me. And also, I like to tell my team when they're worrying about something that I recognize and acknowledge their worry, and to know that I will make sure that they feel comfortable with whatever that problem is, and I will help them solve that problem, whether that be me hands-on or me going to my network of mentors and people that help guide me, the professional team around me, whether that be attorneys, the CPAs, all of those things. So I do have a nice family of support around me, professional support advisors that help.
And the team that you have now is, I know you have about 26 or so employees, and they're largely here in San Diego. Do you see a point down the road where you have bakeries or distribution centers outside of the area? And if so, I'm curious how your leadership will have to change again to then manage a remote team.
Yes, I do see growth. I'm not exactly sure whether that's bakeries, storefronts, whatever that looks like. We're in that phase right now where I'm exploring different opportunities. So I haven't yet thought about my leadership style when that comes, because it's a little bit ways out there. So I'm taking it one step at a time. We just opened our second retail store in San Marcos. And to me, that's almost out of town. And we're 1 year in. So I'm learning how to operate a retail facility and empower my management team to operate and run it. And the next retail location that we have will also be in town. But I am looking to expand our footprint outside of San Diego. And my son is our director of finance. He's my middle son. He's not I guess you can say he's a Nepo baby, but I didn't hire him straight out of college. Number one, he had to get good grades. He studied accounting and finance, and he had to graduate with honors. Then he had to go work outside of Maya's Cookies to understand his trade. Then I was finally able to bring him on and hire him. So he's been working with me for 2 years, and he's definitely filling that space as far as leadership and understanding how to run operations and all the things. So I could see him having more of a role in Maya's Cookies as we grow.
That's exciting. It's great to have that. I mean, to have the family members where you've learned from your experience over the last several years that you mentioned how to manage friends and family, right? And how to hire the right skill set, and not just, like you said, hire someone because they happen to be your son or whoever it might be. There's something that we talk about a lot on the recruiting side with clients of mine, and we ask this question of them a lot, is how, some of the questions that they ask of potential hires. And one of the things we talk about is, there's one thing to be said about hard skills, and a college degree is very important, but it's not the most important thing, all the time. It depends on what the role happens to be. But there are other things like, being an athlete, being a team captain, having that discipline, the things you talked about with the 30 folks that you hired. Are there things, I'm curious, what do you screen for when you hire people? What do you look for that tells you that they're more likely to be a good fit?
Thank you for asking. So last year, when we had to hire employees for our second location, the manager that was hiring would come to me and say, this person loves home baking. They love baking. And I said, I don't want people that love baking because they're going to hate baking when they're done working here. I want people that are problem solvers and critical thinkers. So I want to see on their resume that they've worked at McDonald's, that they've, had that kind of, high level corporate training that I can't afford to give them. But McDonald's, I'm saying McDonald's because it's a long-standing food service organization that has the means to train their employees at a high level to follow corporate standards and guidelines
There's
and
accountability there, and
right?
discipline. You got to show up on time for your shifts, and all those things are part of that experience. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. So those are things that I look for. I look for people that are self-starters and driven, maybe first-gen college, maybe trying to help pay their way through college, people that show a little bit of grit and perseverance. So that is what I'm looking for more than, say, their love of baking. Because like I said, they're going to hate baking after you've made 2,000 cookies a day, 5 days a week.
No one can love it that much all the time.
Right.
That's great. I mean, I use the same thing, actually. I talk a lot about the fact that for me, it's all about resilience and perseverance. Those are the things that really show, can you bounce back from adversity? Right? That's the perseverance side. And then the resilience side is, can you actually push through and do the things that you want to do when you're not always successful? Do you have that ability to push through, especially if you're in sales, right? Where, you're hearing no all the time, and you've got to be able to be that resilient person to not get taken aback by it and be knocked down, but to keep going.
Yep. And for me, also, we're in the cookie business, so you have to be friendly and fun and outgoing. Because no one wants to buy a cookie or, have from, grumpy person.
Right, exactly.
So you have to be somewhat pleasant or have, an outgoing personality.
Like you said, it's the fun part of STEM.
Right.
Back to that piece.
Yep.
Well, I have one more question, but before I ask that, how can people get a hold of you? Obviously, they're going to, after they hear this, they're going to want to taste the cookies for sure. So what's the best way to get a hold of you, either as a customer of Maya's Cookies buying the products, or also as maybe as a mentor, as someone just to bounce questions and ideas off of when it comes to leadership?
Thank you for asking. So if you want to try Maya's Cookies, we have 2 retail locations. One is in San Marcos at the North City development, which is adjacent to the university, Cal State San Marcos. Our other location is in the Grantville area, which is near Mission Valley. We also ship nationwide online at mayascookies.com. And you can find us in the airports, Terminals 1 and 2 in the Hudson News.
Oh, great. I didn't know.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. If you'd like to get in touch with me, I'm on LinkedIn at Maya Madsen. I'd be happy to connect. Your network is your net worth. And, yeah, I mean, I would love for anyone listening to this to check us out on our social media pages. Our Instagram is Maya's Cookies San Diego. You can find some fun stuff there. We also have a TikTok, and that's Maya's Cookies, and we're on Facebook. So
pretty much everywhere. All the relevant channels out there.
You can't get away from us.
That's great. I love that. Okay, so my last question for you is really more one of around kind of mentorship. If you're talking to a group of women, let's say, that are employed, let's say they're in their mid to late 20s, and they're aspiring to get into leadership, not necessarily become a business owner, maybe, but just to get into leadership. What are some things that you might recommend to them that you've learned along the way, good or bad, that would help them to kind of follow that path or really kind of realize that goal?
That's a great question. And something that I've recognized that I'll talk on is that networking is so fundamental and huge. And I never believed in networking. I was a personal trainer, so you just work alone. There's no reason for me to network. And I'm also an introvert. I'm not the type of person to go out there, and I'm not very outgoing. Well, I guess I am, but I'm not. I'm an outdid introvert, whatever that term is.
Sure, exactly. Right.
So networking and going to events was very painful for me. But what I started just diving in and doing it. And what I recognized is every time I went to an event and networked, I always walked away with at least one meaningful connection or meaningful lead or meaningful whatever. And after that happened about 3 times, I saw a pattern. So now every time I go to something, I always say, I can't wait to see what meaningful connection I'm going to have once this is over. And I would say to someone who's young, who's looking into leadership, network, attend events, get involved with organizations, whatever is meaningful to you, and continue to learn. Never stop learning, because that, it's I think it's fundamental. And it's so easy to learn these days. You could literally watch YouTube and walk away with a college degree at this point. So between YouTube, between, just all the Zooms and podcasts and webinars, there is no reason why you can't continue to educate yourself in your field, in leadership, whatever that looks like. There's no excuse. So keep learning.
Well said. Well said. Well, thank you, Maya. It's been a great conversation. I've learned a lot about leadership. And thanks for being vulnerable also and talking about kind of the things that you learned along the way, the good and the bad. We've all been there. We've all had those lessons learned for sure. But thank you for being here. Appreciate the opportunity to chat and learn about the business. And good luck going forward with the next couple of openings.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great. And yeah, I hope everyone comes by and tries a Maya's cookie.
I know I will.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.